The Pacific Northwest, known for its lush forests, breathtaking coastlines, and vibrant cities, faces a threat unlike any in modern history. Scientists warn that a combination of natural forces and human impact could cause dramatic changes to this iconic region, possibly within our lifetime. But what if I told you this isn't just about climate change or rising sea levels? The real danger lies beneath our feet, an impending mega-earthquake and tsunami that could reshape the Pacific Northwest forever, wiping out entire towns and altering the landscape as we know it. Stay tuned to uncover the science, the warnings, and the chilling reality of what could be coming, and why some experts believe it's already overdue. Close your eyes and picture a place where nature feels untamed, towering forests that whisper secrets from centuries past, rugged coastlines carved by the relentless Pacific Ocean, snow-capped peaks that pierce the sky, standing as sentinels over this wild, breathtaking land. This is the Pacific Northwest, a region so enchanting it feels almost otherworldly. But this isn't just a postcard-perfect landscape. Over 16 million people call this place home, from the vibrant cities of Seattle and Portland to the quaint coastal towns and remote wilderness outposts. It's a land of contrasts, where innovation and tradition meet, where human culture and untamed nature coexist. From the Chinook salmon that define the region's rivers to the indigenous tribes whose cultures are deeply intertwined with the land, the Pacific Northwest is unique in ways that defy comparison. And yet this natural paradise is on borrowed time. Beneath the stunning beauty lies an unsettling truth. The Pacific Northwest faces a convergence of threats that could reshape or even erase it in our lifetime. Earthquakes that could shatter entire cities, rising seas threatening to swallow beloved coastal towns, wildfires stronger and more frequent, blackening the lush forests into ash. And that's just the beginning. Climate change, urban expansion, and other forces are conspiring to turn this region from a dreamscape into a disaster zone. Can you imagine losing all of this? The hikes through mossy trails, the sunsets over Puget Sound, the call of the wild echoing through untouched forests, all gone, possibly within decades. In this video, we'll unravel the forces that threaten this incredible region, explore why the Pacific Northwest is so vulnerable, and ask the question, can anything be done to save it? To understand what's at stake, let's start by looking deeper into the science behind these looming threats. Because to truly appreciate what we're at risk of losing, we need to understand why. If you're as fascinated by this story as we are, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more in-depth explorations. And let us know in the comments, what's your favorite memory of the Pacific Northwest? Beneath the tranquil beauty of the Pacific Northwest lies a force so immense, so unpredictable, it could change the region in a matter of minutes. It's called the Cascadia Subduction Zone, a tectonic time bomb silently ticking away beneath our feet. This isn't just any fault line, it's a 600-mile-long boundary where the Juan de Fuca plate collides with the North American plate. As the smaller plate dives, or subducts beneath the larger one, immense pressure builds. And here's the terrifying part. This pressure doesn't release gradually. It stays locked for centuries until suddenly it gives way in a violent rupture. Scientists warn that this rupture could produce one of the most powerful earthquakes in recorded history. To understand its potential, let's look back at the 2011 Tohoku earthquake in Japan. That disaster registered a staggering 9.1 on the Richter scale, triggering a tsunami that wiped entire towns off the map and caused the Fukushima nuclear meltdown. Cascadia could generate a quake just as powerful, or worse. The tsunami it would unleash might produce waves taller than Seattle's iconic Space Needle, crashing into coastal communities with devastating force. For many living along the shoreline, survival would be unlikely. But how do we know such a disaster is coming? The answer lies in the Earth's memory. Geological evidence and historical records tell us that the last massive Cascadia quake struck on January 26, 1700. It was so powerful that its tsunami reached the shores of Japan, recorded in their history as the Orphan Tsunami. Cascadia typically experiences megathrust earthquakes every 200 to 500 years, meaning we are overdue for another one. The signs are clear, the clock is ticking, and the question is no longer if but when. Now imagine receiving an alert on your phone right this second. Massive earthquake imminent. Would you know what to do? Would you have a plan? For many of us the answer is no. And yet the stakes couldn't be higher. Entire cities could be flattened, critical infrastructure wiped out, and lives forever changed. The Cascadia Subduction Zone isn't just a geological curiosity, it's a stark reminder of nature's power and our vulnerability. But while the danger is immense, so too is the effort to prepare. Communities, scientists, and engineers are working tirelessly to mitigate the impacts of the big one, from retrofitting buildings to designing early warning systems. In the next section, we'll explore what's being done to prepare for this inevitable event and how we can protect ourselves when the time comes. The Pacific Northwest is known for its deep connection to water. Its coastal cities thrive alongside sprawling bays and rivers, offering breathtaking waterfront views and vibrant communities. But what if those very waters began to rise, not gently but relentlessly, threatening to swallow the places we call home? This isn't a far-off possibility, it's a looming reality. Across the region, sea levels are rising faster than we'd like to admit, driven by the accelerating impacts of climate change. Globally, sea levels are rising at an average rate of about 3.6 millimeters per year. While this may seem minor, in the Pacific Northwest, the situation is more complex. Due to regional variations like land subsidence and local ocean currents, some areas are seeing rates that outpace global averages. This creeping menace threatens not only remote coastlines but also bustling urban centers like Seattle, Portland, and Vancouver. Scientists warn that a sea level rise of just 3 feet, a scenario that could unfold within the next few decades, would have catastrophic effects on these cities. Imagine coastal neighborhoods turned into permanent flood zones, entire streets submerged, and critical infrastructure rendered useless. To grasp the scale of this threat, let's zoom in on communities already feeling the pressure. In the small town of Tokeland, Washington, residents are watching the shoreline inch closer to their homes every year. In response, some have made the heartbreaking decision to abandon their properties altogether, retreating inland as the ocean claims their land. This trend isn't limited to small towns. Cities like Seattle are spending millions to protect key infrastructure, yet even the most advanced seawalls can only hold back the tide for so long. And it's not just homes at risk. Think about the places that define these communities, the cafes, parks, and markets where life unfolds. Could your favorite coffee shop or weekend picnic spot be underwater in just 30 years? The unsettling truth is that, without significant action, they very well could be. Rising seas don't just threaten physical spaces, they erode the cultural and emotional fabric of the region, forcing people to abandon the places they love most. Yet, as the waters rise, so too does the will to fight back. Engineers, scientists, and policymakers are racing to implement solutions, from nature-based defenses like restoring wetlands to innovative urban planning that accounts for a changing coastline. In the next section, we'll explore how the Pacific Northwest is confronting these rising seas and whether it's enough to secure its future against this growing threat. The Pacific Northwest has always been defined by its lush, green forests. These towering evergreens and dense undergrowth are more than just a backdrop. They're the heart of the region's identity. But in recent years, those same forests have become fuel for an increasingly destructive force: wildfires. Hotter, drier summers and human activity have combined to turn the region into a tinderbox, with flames consuming more land each year and leaving behind scars that may never fully heal. Wildfires in the Pacific Northwest are not new, but their frequency and intensity are reaching unprecedented levels. Summers are getting longer and hotter, drying out vegetation and creating the perfect conditions for ignition. Lightning strikes, campfires, and even downed power lines can spark blazes that spread faster and burn hotter than ever before. Since the early 2000s, the amount of forest lost to wildfires has skyrocketed, with millions of acres reduced to ash. Experts warn that without significant intervention, these numbers could double in the coming decades, fundamentally altering the landscape of the Pacific Northwest. The devastation doesn't stop at the forests. Entire communities have been destroyed, with families losing homes and livelihoods in mere moments. Wildlife, too, bears the brunt of the destruction, as animals are forced to flee their habitats or perish in the flames. And even for those far from the fire lines, the effects are impossible to ignore. Every summer, thick, choking smoke blankets the region, turning skies an eerie orange and plunging air quality to dangerous levels. Imagine stepping outside and finding it hard to breathe, your eyes stinging, your lungs aching. For many residents, this is no longer just a bad day, it's the new normal. And it's not just the immediate impact that's concerning, it's the long-term consequences. The loss of forests means more than just fewer trees. These ecosystems play a critical role in storing carbon, regulating the climate, and supporting countless species. As they vanish, the region faces a cascade of challenges, from worsening climate change to the loss of biodiversity that may never be recovered. But it's not all doom and gloom. Communities and organizations are fighting back, implementing better fire management practices, restoring burned landscapes, and finding innovative ways to coexist with this fiery future. In the next section, we'll delve into what's being done to address this crisis, and whether these efforts can truly save the Pacific Northwest's iconic forests from disappearing forever. High in the Cascade Mountains, a world of ice has existed for thousands of years, shaping the rivers, valleys, and ecosystems of the Pacific Northwest. These glaciers, shimmering in the alpine sunlight, are more than just breathtaking natural features. They're life-giving reservoirs, feeding rivers that sustain millions of people, support vast agricultural fields, and nurture delicate ecosystems. But now, this icy lifeline is disappearing at an alarming rate. Glaciers in the Cascades are melting faster than ever before. Over the past century, many have shrunk by more than half, with some vanishing entirely. Scientists attribute this rapid retreat to rising global temperatures and shifting precipitation patterns. Warmer winters mean more rain and less snow, while hotter summers accelerate the melting of what little ice remains. At current rates, many of these glaciers could be gone within decades, leaving behind barren rock and dust. The loss of glaciers is more than just a blow to the region's natural beauty, it's a crisis for its water supply. Glaciers act as natural reservoirs, releasing a steady supply of water during the dry summer months when rainfall is scarce. This meltwater feeds the rivers that provide drinking water to cities like Seattle and Portland, irrigate farms in the fertile valleys, and sustain countless species of fish and wildlife. Without glaciers, these rivers will run dry during the hottest and driest times of the year, creating a cascading effect of water shortages, agricultural failures, and ecological collapse. Imagine a summer where rivers shrink to a trickle, crops wither in the fields, and cities face strict water rationing. Could your city survive without water? The implications stretch far beyond inconvenience. They threaten the very fabric of life in the Pacific Northwest. Entire communities may have to grapple with difficult choices, relocating, redesigning infrastructure, or completely rethinking how they live. Yet even in the face of such dramatic loss, there's hope. Scientists and conservationists are working tirelessly to understand and mitigate glacier loss, exploring ways to conserve water resources and adapt to a changing climate. In the next section, we'll uncover the innovative strategies being developed to address this crisis and discuss whether it's possible to safeguard the Pacific Northwest's future in a world where glaciers continue to vanish. The Pacific Northwest isn't just a hub of natural beauty, it's also an economic powerhouse. From the fertile fields of the Willamette Valley to the thriving tech hubs of Seattle and Portland, the region has built a dynamic economy rooted in its unique resources and environment. But what happens when the very foundation of that prosperity begins to crumble? The combined threats of earthquakes, rising seas, wildfires, and melting glaciers aren't just environmental catastrophes. They could trigger an economic collapse that reshapes the region forever. At its core, the Pacific Northwest's economy is deeply tied to its natural resources. Agriculture depends on the fertile soils and abundant water provided by rivers fed by glaciers. Fisheries thrive in the region's cold, clean waters, and its sprawling forests fuel a timber industry that supports thousands of jobs. Even tourism, which brings millions of visitors to hike its trails, ski its peaks, and kayak its rivers, is built on the beauty of the land. But as the region faces rising seas, vanishing glaciers, and an increasing frequency of wildfires, these industries are under siege. Take agriculture, for instance. Farmers in the Pacific Northwest rely on consistent water supplies for crops like berries, apples, and wine grapes that are staples of the local economy. But as glaciers melt and rivers dry up, irrigation systems are at risk of failing, leaving fields barren. Similarly, the fishing industry, a cornerstone of coastal communities, faces its own existential crisis. Rising sea temperatures and acidification, combined with habitat loss, are threatening salmon and other species that have long been the lifeblood of these communities. And it's not just natural resource industries at risk. The region's booming tech sector, often called the next Silicon Valley, is far from immune. Coastal tech campuses, major transportation hubs, and data centers could all be severely impacted by flooding and earthquakes. Imagine a scenario where an earthquake wipes out critical infrastructure, cutting off power and data flow to major tech firms. Or picture rising seas inundating downtown Seattle, forcing companies to relocate or shut down entirely. Could the Pacific Northwest's ambitious climb to global tech prominence be cut short before it fully blooms? Then there's tourism. Visitors come from all over the world to experience the Pacific Northwest's pristine wilderness. But who will want to vacation in a region plagued by orange skies, smoke-filled air, and depleted rivers? The loss of tourism revenue would deal yet another blow to local businesses already struggling to adapt to a changing climate. The ripple effects of these disasters extend far beyond any single industry. Entire communities could face unemployment, forcing families to leave behind generations of heritage and culture. Local economies would collapse and recovery would take years, if not decades. But as grim as this picture may seem, it's not a foregone conclusion. Efforts are already underway to mitigate these threats and build resilience into the region's economy. In the final section, we'll explore how innovation, collaboration, and determination are key to saving not just the Pacific Northwest's natural environment, but its economic future as well. The threats facing the Pacific Northwest are as vast as its landscapes. Earthquakes, rising seas, wildfires, and vanishing glaciers paint a stark picture of a region at the brink. But amidst these challenges, there's a growing force of resilience, a determination to not only survive but thrive in the face of these crises. Is there still hope for the Pacific Northwest? The answer lies in the people, communities, and innovations fighting to preserve it. Scientists, governments, and communities are taking bold steps to prepare for the big one, the massive earthquake expected to strike the Cascadia Subduction Zone. Early warning systems, seismic retrofitting of buildings, and detailed evacuation plans are being implemented to save lives when the ground begins to shake. Coastal towns are reinforcing infrastructure to withstand tsunamis, building elevated shelters, and educating residents on how to react when seconds count. These efforts may not stop the earthquake, but they could mean the difference between disaster and survival. Meanwhile, cities are rising to the challenge of a changing climate. Along the coast, urban planners are rethinking how to build resilient communities. In Seattle, innovative seawalls and green stormwater infrastructure are helping to mitigate the impacts of rising seas. Across the region, communities are planting fire-resistant vegetation, creating buffer zones, and adopting controlled burns to reduce wildfire risk. These measures not only protect property, but also preserve the natural beauty that defines the region. Renewable energy and green initiatives are also playing a pivotal role in the fight for the Pacific Northwest's future. Investments in wind, solar, and hydroelectric power are reducing reliance on fossil fuels, cutting carbon emissions, and slowing the pace of climate change. Forward-thinking policies like Oregon's push for clean energy and Washington's ambitious carbon reduction goals are setting an example for the rest of the world. Could these efforts transform the Pacific Northwest into a global model for climate resilience? At the heart of these initiatives is a powerful idea that the Pacific Northwest's greatest strength is its people. From grassroots movements to high-tech innovations, individuals and communities are proving that action, even in the face of immense challenges, can make a difference. This region has faced adversity before, and its history is a testament to the enduring spirit of its inhabitants. So, will the Pacific Northwest become a cautionary tale of what happens when we ignore the warnings, or a beacon of hope, showing what's possible when we confront the future with courage and ingenuity? The answer depends on us. This is not just a fight for the Pacific Northwest, it's a fight for all of us, for the planet, and for the generations yet to come. As we close this exploration, we invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe the Pacific Northwest can overcome these challenges and become a leader in climate resilience? And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video to join the conversation. Together, we can help shape a future where hope prevails. The Pacific Northwest is a land of awe-inspiring beauty and immense potential, but it's also a region under siege. Earthquakes, rising seas, wildfires, and vanishing glaciers are not distant threats. They're unfolding before our eyes, reshaping the landscapes and lives of millions. The stakes couldn't be higher. This is more than a fight for a single region. It's a battle for our collective future. Every moment we delay brings us closer to irreversible loss. But there's still time to act, to protect this incredible corner of the world before it's too late. Scientists, communities, and leaders are stepping up, but they can't do it alone. The fate of the Pacific Northwest isn't just in their hands, it's in all of ours. So, what will you do? Will you support the fight against climate change? Advocate for stronger disaster preparedness? Help preserve the forests, rivers, and coastlines for future generations? The clock is ticking, and the choices we make today will echo far into the future. The Pacific Northwest's story isn't finished yet, and together we can ensure it's a story of resilience, innovation, and hope. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. How would you protect this remarkable region? And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to join this critical conversation. The future is calling, and it's up to us to answer.